Well, it was another drama-filled weekend at the Formula One Grand Prix, this one taking place in Mexico City at the Autódromo Hermano Rodriguez racetrack. There are only 4 races left for the season, and the last 2 weeks have been all about Ferrari. After a touch-and-go start to Sunday's race, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz managed to convert his pole position into a victory when he placed first in Mexico's F1, leading to his 4th Formula One triumph. His teammate Charles Leclerc, who won last week in Austin, managed to secure 3rd place this weekend. Joining me to walk us through everything that happened over the weekend in Mexico City is talkSPORT reporter John Jackson. John, we have to again dive straight into Ferrari's 2nd weekend of success.
Yeah, so we're 2 weekends into this triple header in North and South America, and so far Ferrari have won both races. Charles Leclerc last time in Austin, Carlos Sainz this past weekend in Mexico City. Basically a great weekend for him. He had his friends and family, his parents were there as well, and they watched him put the car on pole position, a great lap in qualifying. He then lost the lead at the start of the race, but regained it on lap 9, a great move under DRS. The Ferrari faster than Max Verstappen's Red Bull. He retook the lead, he sailed into the distance, there was chaos behind him, but that didn't matter. Carlos became the first Spanish-speaking driver to win in Mexico City, which is absolutely huge. Obviously, Sergio Perez would love to have won that race for Red Bull and become the first Spanish-speaking driver to win in Mexico, given he's also Mexican. However, Carlos has swiped that accolade away from him, and he's going to really make Williams lick their lips for what he can do for them next year. They might not be challenging for race wins and championships, but certainly he can get the most out of a car. And for Carlos, it was great to see him on the podium, on the top step for the 2nd time this season after he won in Australia. He's got 4 races to go. Could he win more races? Maybe.
Max Verstappen and Lando Norris's rivalry didn't stay in Austin after last week's 5-second penalty drama. The two of them very much brought the heat all the way to Mexico, where the two continued to battle it out. Red Bull's Verstappen has copped backlash for his driving on Sunday, with critics calling him dangerous and ridiculous. The 27-year-old Dutchman was the one to be penalised this weekend when he was handed 2 10-second penalties for his driving on the 10th lap when he was trying to beat out Norris.
So a week ago in Austin, you might remember Max was battling Lando, and Lando ended up with a 5-second penalty because he went into a corner against Max. Max was slightly ahead in the corner, which is the important thing here, and Lando went off the track, gained a place, but didn't give it back. And because Max was ahead in the corner, that was deemed to have been gaining an advantage off the track. We fast forward to a week later and we had to wait till lap 10 for a very similar situation. Of course, in the week, McLaren, Lando's team, had been fighting this and appealing this, and it got batted away completely. The FIA, interestingly, did say they would look into the guidelines and how they're written about this kind of situation. So watch this space on that one. I'm not expecting it to be something that's going to be done very quickly. But we go into lap 10. We got Lando going against Max again. The difference is that Lando was ahead into that corner. Max then went wide again. Lando had to go off the track and, in fact, went over the grass and overtook both Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, the race leader. He gave that place back to Carlos Sainz, as he should have done. But then when it was looked into, it was decided that Max Verstappen was at fault for that incident. So basically, he got a time penalty there of 10 seconds. Then moments later, on one of the corners shortly after that, Max was desperately trying to get that place back from Lando Norris, dive bombed into one of the corners, which was completely, well, I wouldn't say out of control, but he was fighting the car the whole way. There was a lot of left steering lock there as he fought with the car, pushed them both wide. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari actually benefited because he went through and eventually finished the race in 2nd place, but that was deemed to have again been Max's fault. So he got a 20-second penalty, which he had to do in the pits. And bearing in mind that these guys can do pit stops in under 2 seconds sometimes, to watch the Red Bull mechanics standing there for 20 seconds to be counted down before they could touch the car was agonizing for viewers. So you can only imagine how agonizing that was for Max Verstappen. It dropped him way back. However, he did pretty well to get back and finish 6th in the end.
Lando Norris placing 2nd in the Mexico F1 and Max Verstappen finishing 4 places behind him on 6th, as the motorsport world wondering whether or not Norris could cut into Verstappen's lead, as the Red Bull driver is leading the season with 362 points and Norris is just behind him on 2nd with 315. So will Norris gain enough points on Verstappen with only 4 races left?
With Lando finishing second in the race and Max Verstappen finishing down in sixth, it does mean that Lando's cut Max's lead to 47 points in the championship. We do only have 4 races to go, with the next one being Brazil this next weekend. It's very unlikely, let's face it, that Max will drop that many points to Lando. But if we see more battles like this out on the track, you never know. You only need Max to get some damage on his car and not finish the race a couple of times, or Lando goes on to win. You never know. It could happen. You've got Charles Leclerc, 24 points behind Lando Norris. So it's not even guaranteed that Lando Norris will finish second in this championship. So there's all to play for. And in the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull are really dropping back now. We've got McLaren leading the championship. We have Ferrari 29 points behind them now. Ferrari keep getting 2 cars finishing high up, while you've got McLaren with Oscar Piastri finishing a little bit further back this time. And we've got Sergio Perez in the Red Bull finishing way off the pace as well. So you kind of got 1 car against 2, which means in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari are in a really strong position right now. I would imagine that McLaren are still favourites, but you wouldn't count Ferrari out.
John, while Carlos Sainz became the first Spaniard to win the Mexico Grand Prix, Sergio Perez missed out on winning the race on home turf after a bit of a nightmare performance for the Red Bull driver. Is it time's up for Perez?
Sergio Perez has always said that he wants to win his home Mexican Grand Prix. Has that chance now evaporated in front of him? Was that his final moment? Because he said defiantly at the end of the race, after finishing last, that he will be back next year and it's still his dream to win that Grand Prix. However, things are not looking good for him. I feel like the only thing he really had left in the bank with Red Bull was that he's Mexican and we have a Mexican Grand Prix. And a huge reason we have that race is because of Sergio Perez and the sponsorship and the popularity he has. Now, by finishing last, having a dismal weekend, going out of qualifying in the first round, it's just not giving him any hope for next season. Although he has a contract, we have Liam Lawson there, who's just been brought into their sister team RB, basically as his audition for that seat next year. And actually, Sergio Perez had a battle out on track with Liam Lawson for, I think it was 10th position at the time. And Liam Lawson won that battle. And it didn't really go very well for Sergio Perez. Liam Lawson is looking like the favourite to be in the Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen next year. So could that have been Sergio's last chance in Mexico City? I think maybe it was.
John, another Spaniard on the racetrack had his dreams crushed. Fernando Alonso's 400th race came to a disappointing end when he had to pull out early on the 16th lap. Can you walk me through this race for Alonso? It's not the end for the 43-year-old?
First of all, a huge achievement for Fernando Alonso to make 400 races in Formula One. Before you take into consideration, he also stepped away from the sport for a while before returning. So even more impressive. He's won the World Championship 2 times. He's still racing at the peak of his ability, or near enough, in his 40s. An absolute legend of the sport. The weekend didn't go how he would have wanted to have celebrated 400 races because he retired his car on lap 16. It was overheating, so unfortunately he had to take himself out of the race. But the fans in Mexico were absolutely loving him everywhere. Literally, his face was everywhere, and his name was even on the track with the number 400 next to it. And he expects to be around for 450 races at least, which would see him to the end of his contract in 2026. So we haven't seen the last of Fernando Alonso. I just hope we haven't seen the last of Fernando Alonso standing on the top step of the podium.
John, thank you so much for your time today. Up next is the Brazilian Grand Prix in Sao Paulo, taking place this weekend. Make sure you like and subscribe to the talkSPORT driving page, where you can get all the expert analysis and breakdowns each week on what is happening in the motorsport world as we head into the final few weeks of the season. See you next time.